Tell me, how has it been like the effort in reducing poverty, VSO's efforts on the same?
Thank you very much, Michael. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I mean, poverty is quite a complex issue. So they have, poverty has various facets. So as VSO, we've been here for 20 years. So VSO is a UK-based organization who's working at the moment in 25 countries in the world. So what we're trying to do is to fight or contribute to the fight against poverty, but most importantly, to fight inequalities, because I think that has been the major pitfalls in order to try to fight poverty. So in Rwanda, we've been in Rwanda since 1998, and we were invited by the Ministry of Education, because most of the teachers, they were either killed or they fled the country after the genocide against the Tutsi. So what we've been doing really is to come and provide that boost into the education sector, especially given our comparative advantage. So we work through volunteers, so some highly skilled people who come and share their knowledge and their skills. So that's what we've been doing, really, working in schools with the teachers, training them, mentoring them, and coaching them so that they can improve the quality of teaching. I'm sure that you are aware that Rwanda has made some great strides in terms of the enrollment rate as part of the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, so 98% enrollment. But that was the first phase. So the second phase was more around quality, and that's where really we're trying to make a difference by working with the Ministry of Education and the teachers on the ground.
Papa, that's rather very interesting. But now allow me to push you to something that's very interesting. We're still seeing a 13% percentage point when it comes to graduates that are unemployed today. Is the biggest problem that there are no jobs on the market, or is the unemployment a big on the back of the education itself? Is education a cause of concern right now?
Education is definitely a concern. I mean, in most of the sub-Saharan countries, I think education is a concern. As I mentioned earlier, Rwanda has made some great strides in terms of enrollment rate. Now we are focusing on the quality. How can we make sure that the students that are going to school, especially at lower education, right? So we're talking about pre-primary and primary, because that's where you're building the foundation. I think that's where we're focusing our effort, and that's where the government of Rwanda as well is focusing its efforts. I mean, in terms of the unemployment rate, yeah, it's a challenge, and I think if you look at the new vision, the Vision 2050 of the country and the National Strategy for Transformation, it's really clear that the government is making some strides as well to try to work with the private sector in order to create jobs as well for all these graduates. As VSO, we do have also we are growing our national volunteering programs, where we are giving opportunities to new graduates to volunteer. As you know, volunteering in Rwanda is a homegrown solution. So we're giving them the opportunity to volunteer, looking at it as a practical training center where they get the skills, they get the experience, and so they're more open to the job market. And we have many examples where after a year or a couple of years, they get jobs as a sector education officer or even in other INGOs. So that's quite important. But as far as VSO is concerned, we are focusing on the lower education, because that's where we believe that we need to make sure that we are giving to the children the foundation, so that, you know, and the higher education, we give them all the tools to be able to be successful.
Papa, what's the real way to go about eradicating poverty? I mean, we're seeing it going gradually, and for the past at least 20 years or 24 years after the genocide, this has been something to commend about Rwanda's strides. But what is the right way to go about this? Because, I mean, we don't want to be in poverty forever.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big question you're asking, and I don't think that anyone has an answer to that, to be honest with you. But as I said earlier, poverty is it's a very complex issue. So it's not, you know, it's not an issue that you can solve with one bullet. So that's why I mean, you have the Sustainable Development Goals that were just ratified by United Nations a couple of years ago. But it's quite important because it look at three main principles. So you have the principle of universality. So how can you make sure that we are addressing the issue of every single human being? So even the most excluded, the most marginalized groups. But most of the time they are ostracized and they don't get access to services. The second one is integration. How integrated are all the different issues? I was talking about education, but you can't look at education just, you know, through training of teachers. I mean, you need to look at the schools, the buildings. You need to look at access to water and sanitation, access to nutrition, to food, etc. So it's quite complex. And the third one is more around the ambition of that. So I think what we're trying to achieve really it's not impossible, but I mean, it really pushes us from the MDGs, and I think that's one of the way that we'll be able to make some strides in order to address poverty.
All right.